Hey everyone, it's Mrs. Piro. Today we're going to add our color to our fish drawing that we made in the previous video. So I have chosen warm colors for this koi fish, and here you see me waking up the colors. So I'm just adding little droplets of water into the colors that I want to use, because my watercolor paint is a dry paint to begin with, and to activate it we have to wake it up with a little bit of water. And you might need to continue to add water as you're painting. So if you lose the ability to load up your brush with color, just add a little more water to it. So here we see I'm just adding different areas of different oranges, reds, and yellows. And our koi fish is not all one solid color. So we're gonna have some areas that are a little bit more of a reddish orange and some more of a yellow orange. And then some areas that I want to lighten up with the yellow, and all those colors blend and mix well together. I'm actually putting the yellow directly on this back fin, this dorsal fin area, because we want the dorsal fin to really pop out against the body area and appear like it's closer to us. Okay, so the yellow is right on top. All right, and then I'm just gonna continue to do that and fill up my fish with these different areas of color. Again, the warm colors for the koi fish on this project. Okay, now I'm gonna set this part of the project aside and let that fish painting dry, and we're going to create something called a watercolor wash. So the watercolor wash technique, we have to wet down our paper, and we're just going to lightly coat the paper with color. It might be a little bit of a shiny wet type look, and then the second step is to choose our colors and just lay those colors onto the paper in streaks and stripes, and just let the color just sort of sit on top of that wet paper and let it flow and move around all by itself. We want those colors to diffuse and mix together and just sort of play together and do their own thing. We don't want to use our brush and sort of intentionally mix them together, because what that would do is create all one color. So instead we want this almost like a tie-dye look, where the color just sort of soaks into that wet paper and mixes around and just starts to look really beautiful and blend together all by itself. Later on, we're going to be using this paper and tearing up different strips of paper and creating a collage with it. So we're really just playing and having fun and creating a painted paper with this step. We're probably not going to use all of this paper, so it doesn't matter if there's some areas you like better than others. But we do want to keep just a few colors, so limit yourself to maybe blue and purple in one area, or maybe blue and green in another area. Unfortunately, green and purple mix together and make brown, so we don't want to put green and purple together. So just limit yourself to a couple of colors, and then let them sit on the paper and just sort of soak in and blend on their own. I do want to paint all the way from the left to the right and make sure that my paper is wet all the way to the edges. If the paper is wet, the color will sort of soak in and spread to those wet areas. If it's dry, it won't go to those areas. So you have to make sure that you do have your paper wet from side to side all the way across. Okay, and then I'll let that paper dry. And I'm going to go back to my fish now. And I'm going to carefully cut out my fish. One thing to note when you're cutting, it's a good idea to use your one hand that you're cutting with as your cutting hand, and the other hand is your driving hand, like you're driving a car. So think about how you move the steering wheel of your car around. That's what you're going to do with that driving hand. You're going to be moving the paper instead of the steering wheel. And so you're moving the paper around with the left hand. In this case, I'm a right-handed person, so I cut with my right hand, and I drive with my left hand. So I'm driving the paper through the cutting process. Sometimes I move my my scissors a little bit, but I don't want to be really driving with my scissor hand because that makes it really hard to cut accurately. And so you're going to be doing most of the movement with your left hand. Now, if you are a left-handed person, that means you're left hand dominant, then you would just flip it and do it the opposite way, and that's fine too. So this just helps you to cut in and out of these detailed little areas. Every once in a while, I take my scissors and I get rid of a big chunk of paper, and I cut that cut paper out of the picture and just kind of remove that, and that way it gets out of my way. It's a little bit easier that way. Just chop off little pieces so that I can get into those fine detail areas and not have that extra paper in the way. So this is going to take you a little while. You might need to pause the video and just go ahead and finish your cutting, and then turn the video on again if you need to in just a little while. We're almost done. I can't wait to see the next step. I can't wait to see what your projects look like. You could email them or add them into the comments. Take a picture and add them into comments below so that I can see the pictures. I'd love to see your work. I guess you can't really email me on this one, but you can add your photos into the comment section. I hope you're having fun making this with me. We're almost finished with this cutting step. All right, that's cut out now. At this point, I can get rid of, recycle my scrap papers, and I'm going to need a third piece of paper. I'm going to use a black piece of paper. Now, if you want, you could just glue it onto your painted background, and that could be your finished piece. But if you want to complete the collage design, you're going to get a black piece of paper, just like I have here, and then we're going to move on to the next step, and this is going to be to tear our paper into strips. So I'm going to take my painted paper, and I want to tear about 3 or 4 strips, and I'm going to keep my fingers really close to where my tearing happens, and that way I can kind of control the tear. And I want to make a wavy line. Okay, so my strips are going to kind of move up and down a little bit as I'm tearing them, and then I'm going to keep doing that until I get at least 3 to 4 strips of paper that I can work with. And this way we can sort of have the fish going above and below the little strips of paper. I'm going to show you that next. So just go ahead and tear this painted paper, and here we're going to test it out. You can see that the fish can go a little bit above and a little bit below. We kind of have some parts above and below. And I do want to have my torn paper go from left to right. And I want to make sure I have a little flat end at the beginning and at the end of each strip. So I don't want to tear a portion of the paper. Sometimes I make a mistake and I accidentally tear the paper and I mess it up, and I just go ahead and I glue them down together. So I have done that in the past. If you accidentally tear a piece that doesn't go all the way across, you can just add the 2 parts together. Okay, now here I'm just trying to smooth my paper out a little bit, and I'm trying to practice and test different areas. So I put this one down and see where I want to arrange my different pieces of paper. Tearing another little piece here. organizing and getting all my strips of paper ready. Oh, I can't wait to see what this is going to look like. Okay, we're going to need some glue. You could use a glue stick or an Elmer's glue or a tacky glue. Anything that you have in the house works well. Any kind of glue that the color turns clear as it dries, that works really well. And again, I'm practicing and I'm laying out the different strips. I want to have them go above and below. Maybe some parts of my fish are going to go on top of my paper strips. There's going to be little spaces of black in between the different strips. And I had one fin above and the tail above, and then it looks like the fish is going under the water and going below the paper in some areas. You can see I'm holding the paper really carefully and just moving my hands along at the area that I'm tearing so that I can control that direction. If I try to tear from one end and all the way to the other, I can't really control it. And then I'm just practicing and arranging. Oops! Oh no! Well, sometimes that happens. I tore a little piece off the end. I'll just save that piece and then I can glue it down where I need it. Never fear, mistakes can be fine and you can just make it work for you. Okay, I'm going to use a little piece of paper when I'm doing my gluing, and that way if I can glue off the edges, it'll go on that little piece of paper and it won't dirty up my workspace, and that way I can just have a little messy mat area to work on. I'm going to pat that down, and oops, I've got that little broken piece that I had there, and I'm just going to glue that separately, and that's fine. I'm just going to pat that down. And I'm just going to continue to work on gluing the backs of my paper strips. Some of them I'm going to have to hold off to the side so that I can work with the fish as well. Sometimes I turn it over and rub the back. Now I'm going to glue the back of the fish. Glue the strips as well. And I'm just going to kind of weave that fish and those paper strips in and out above and below one another. And just keep moving them around and working with them. Might have to lift up certain parts so that they sit on top of the background strips, and some parts can stay below it. And then at the end, I just like to massage the back of the paper and make sure that everything is glued nicely. And then we have a finished collage painting. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can like and subscribe below if you liked the video. I hope you had a great time. Bye-bye.